Thank you everyone for coming to this first roundtable, the first of the symposium and our first, which will be about reenactments, experimental archaeology, and topics related. As you all know, the study of medieval and modern foodways is founded on a careful interpretation of recipe books, and as well as other textual sources since its beginnings as a scientific field of research, as specified by the very title of this symposium. However, other methods have emerged over the years, often inspired by the development of medieval archaeology from the end of the 20th century. Among these techniques, these new methods, the reenacting or reconstruction of ancient and medieval techniques has received particular attention. First of all, the archaeological study of material culture has developed new approaches based on experimental methods. Nowadays, some researchers, like Fabian or Aurélie, have developed new approaches based on these experimental methods. Experimental archaeology, reenacting, seem now to deserve both theoretical and applicative discussions. Just what we are going to discuss today. We see the occasion here with two researchers plus me who have been investigating themselves in this field of research for several years. We are going to present ourselves. As for myself, I'm a PhD candidate and lecturer in medieval archaeology at the University of Poitiers in France. I've worked since 2014 in the fields of urban archaeology, castle archaeology, mainly in Western France, mainly in France. I'm currently associated with the field projects on the medieval palace of the Dukes of Aquitaine, here in Poitiers, in Western France, as a field manager and responsible for topics concerning food and kitchens. My doctoral work, my doctoral thesis, focuses on supply, kitchens, and archaeological remains of cooking in Aquitanian medieval castles. Aquitaine being, you know, the southwestern parts of France. I'm not myself an experimental archaeologist, but I'm more a traditional archaeologist, field archaeologist, and textual historian. But I'm really enthusiastic about the possibilities offered by experimental archaeology and by what make my dear colleagues here when it comes to interpreting archaeological data, more precisely, which explains my presence here. We will discuss these topics of interpreting later. I will let now my colleagues present themselves, beginning by Aurélie.
Hello, everyone. I am just as Charles, a PhD candidate and lecturer in medieval archaeology at Paris 1 Panthéon-Sorbonne University. I work as a research and field supervisor at the Orville Castle. It's near Paris since 2017. I'm involved in the APERA association, that is an association for experimental archaeology, which I presided from 2016 to 2018. The purpose of my PhD is to bring to light the cultural specificities of medieval cooking, depending on time period, social status, and regional contexts, based on archaeological evidence and experimental archaeology. To this aim, I used cross-methodological approaches, such as the use-where, chemical and starch grain analysis, but also examination of textual sources and images in close collaboration with other specialists. And now I'll let Fabian present himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't speak very well English. I'm very sorry, but I try. So my name is Fabian Müllers, and I teach at the University of Tours, and I am specialized in the late medieval aristocracy. I have a role in the CPA master's program, Culture and Patrimoine de l'Alimentation, so culture and heritage of food. And my course mainly focused on the research and the interpretation of the historical culinary recipes. I'm also an associated researcher within the CoReMA program, and I am in charge of mediating activities and public history. So I created with Bruno Loyou the YouTube show D'aimer et des mots pour une histoire culinaire, so dishes and words for a culinary history, and produced numerous episodes of the Recette de CoReMA. Last but not least, I'm also operational manager of cultural facilities in the urban community of Douai, more specially at the Archaeos Museum Park, which hosted an experimental archaeology session as part of this symposium. And I will now let Aurélie again to introduce our main question and topics.
But before Aurélie,
Ah, no, excuse me.
It's me.
I'm very sorry.
Don't worry. So I'm the Q&A moderator for this roundtable. So don't hesitate to use the tab behind the screen to ask your question during the presentation. After presentation, I will ask two questions for you. I speak French, Dutch, and English, so you can ask the question in French, Dutch, and English. And I translate for the roundtable in English. No, I will let Aurélie introduce this time the roundtable.
So what we are going to try to, the question we are going to try to answer together is what are the contributions of experimental archaeology and or practice of medieval cooking to understand medieval recipes? First, what are the nuances around reenactment and experimentation? Because we all have, all of us, different approaches to try to understand the medieval cooking. Fabian is doing it like a cook. Myself, I have a more scientific approach. And as Charles says, he doesn't really experiment things, but he tried to understand the results that by the people of the past through archaeological evidences. So it is very complementary, and I think we can try to speak together about these different approaches and the nuances they are in the different way to do medieval cooking. I will start with Fabian to ask him what the term reenactment and experimentation of medieval recipes means to him and how he uses them.
Okay, so to begin, we need to define what we are talking about. Reenactment. So what is a reenactment? Perhaps recreate something as we think it was, with a great place left for self-interpretation. For example, we have a lot of people who do reenactment of events, battle, etc. It's a little bit like a role-playing game, but perhaps with historical bases and costume. Interpretation is different, rather from historical and scientific data, what we can imagine from something from the past, see what we can make a credible image of something lost, and our imagination like a historian, must be limited by our knowledge, but the imagination is very important in this interpretation. We have other words, restitution, evocation, words can qualify an historical cooking practice with different degrees of relevance. And for experimentation, Aurélie, maybe you can bring your point of view about the experimentation.
Yes, I just say experimentation is a more scientific approach. It's something the prehistorian, the people, the archaeologists that are working on periods where there are no textual sources, are doing a lot to try to understand the techniques that were used, and it's a way to do that is a lot based on the comparison between the result of the experimentation and the traces left on the archaeological material. But it's an approach to verify a theory, way to do or way to use things. But it's also a way to learn which level of know-how is necessary. So it's a kind of try to do to know how it was done. Maybe Fabian, you want to complete that?
When the try to do is very important, I think. How can we know what was the past with the experimentation? When trying to imitate of reenact medieval cooking, as well as any ancient way to do things, there can be various nuances of interpretations, more or less close to what we can know about the past, depending on what the source allow us to know about an ancient use.
Yes. Yes, Charlie, if you want.
Maybe before we go to our next point, again, I'm not an experimentator myself, but I feel like it's in France, nevertheless, it's quite new for medievalists to go experimenting things. As you said, it began with prehistorians, specialists of the Neolithic periods, and is there now a trend in experimentation and cooking experimentation for medievalists in Europe or in France? Or do you feel alone in that research? Real question, because I think you two are the only two persons I know in France who are going with this type of research.
Well, they are experimenting. Cooking is really special in archaeology because, as I just said, experimentation is really around the technical approach. It's a French specialty of now anthropological approach of the techniques, and that's why we have to start to see the cooking as a technical fact to go further and experiment that. But there are some researchers, even for most for non-historical periods without texts. But there are some research on and people that trying to know how it was done, but more for Neolithic and some in for the Gaul periods.
Yeah, Iron Age, yes.
Yes. But yes, for the medieval periods, we are really few. And in my knowledge, I'm the only one to really do something to have this technical approach. Fabian have another approach because he really tried to redo the recipes as it was done in the past.
Yeah,
but yes, I feel a bit alone.
Yes. I don't know if we're still in the subject, so tell me, but I think I don't know if you are going to, you two are going to speak about the places where you do your experimentation. You mentioned that you cooked at the Orville Castle in near Paris, and Fabian said he was currently working at Douai in northern France. What can we say about these sites? I know that Orville is an archaeological site, whereas Douai is kind of reconstructed High Middle Ages village. Is there a link for you between the archaeological place, the archaeological sites, and experimentation? I mean, you could do that everywhere, but you do that at Orville or Douai. How is it for you relevant to do so in these historical places?
I think it's very important. The Orville site is managed by a museum. It's important to know because I think experimentation can be very easily linked to the mediation to the general public. And I think Fabian will agree to say that it's important to share when we can do something. It can really enjoy people to see how we are doing this. And it's a way to make a contact with general public. So yes, I think it is important to do this kind of thing in places where people can come and see what we are doing.
It's a kind of public archaeology or public history.
It can be, yes, not every time, because for my experience, there are some of the process that we can do with the public and explain that, but it's more in the reenactment, like Fabian does, that we can really share and focus on the mediation with the public.
Okay, if I can, I have two approach. The first, it is like experimental archaeology about cooking, and the second is mediation for the public. To show to the public what can we do, what I suppose it was in the Middle Age. The difficult when we are in a place like Parc Archeos in Douai, it is very difficult because it is a park for Merovingian and Carolingian, and we don't have any book of recipes. So it is more interpretation of interpretation. And when we are in, but what is interesting in this about this place? So we have a lot of archaeological material, and we can make a pot like in the Middle Age, because we have a model, and so it is very interesting. But when we show to the public, the big difficulty, we have a lot of medieval festival in France and in Europa. And of this festival, most public, when he want eat something medieval of the Middle Age, he see a pig on fire with bean. and
Yes.
and the man sell this food. Yeah, it is medieval, but no, no. So the public have don't have a good idea about this medieval kitchen, and when we show what it was or what can it was. Yeah, it is difficult because the public have another image of this food, and sometimes he don't understand, or he not agree with the video or the same image. Yeah. A lot of species because the meat was ugly and so, well, but it is for us another theme.
Yes, they don't get the real picture about
Yeah.
what we know or what we think to know about medieval kitchen.
Yes, but they neither have with my when I experimented with real pots like in medieval time made by a specialist and whatever. It wasn't like medieval cooking neither, because I just was trying to reveal very specific things. So I don't follow faithfully at all the medieval recipes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they can be something between the two approach, but it's important to for my experience, it's important to share with the public how we can know how medieval cooking was. It's more the thing I do because I'm not a cook at all, unless Fabian.
The research process.
Yes.
Thank you.
Maybe we can go to can
Our
go
next
further.
point. Do you want me to introduce it?
Yes, if you want. Yeah. Go on.
Yes, as you know, what we do is historical or archaeological, and we need sources, historical sources, to begin to experiment. So to reconstruct ancient recipes and food ways, different parts of the process can interest us. Cooked and raw materials, cooked materials and raw materials, the environments, cooking tools, cooking environments like hearth, chimneys, etc. The cooking methods used, and finally, the final product. The cooked meat or other things with tastes and aspects and the way people can like or dislike the taste of it. Each of these aspects of the cooking can be enlightened by some sources. Which sources can tell what? So I think we will have many things to say here because we, the three of us, have used very different sources. I think Fabian can begin, notably about the ingredients.
Yeah, the ingredients. It's perhaps the biggest the difficulty. Yeah, a big difficulty lies in the choice of the ingredient. What can we say about the ingredient of the Middle Age? We have some picture and we have some in archaeology we can find too. We have text, but I think they are different from what we think today, most certainly. We don't know which variable to apply to their taste or their texture of this ingredient. Today, in two regions in France, when we have a cow from Aubrac, she eats grass all the year, and when we have another cow with another alimentation, we have two different quality of meat, but we are in the same century. But in the Middle Age, we know the cows are small, very small, and don't give a lot of milk. And which quality of milk and which quality of meat we have in the Middle Age, I don't know. So when I make a recipe today with ingredients for today, it is difficult for me to understand I'm right or I'm wrong. Well, as an ingredient, I think it is a big difficulty.
I think, Charles, you can give the point of view of the archaeologist.
Yes, as a traditional archaeologist, you know, the guy who digs, I think one of the main things we can bring to the research on medieval food and cooking is are the ingredients, precisely, because what we recover are the tools, but parts of the ingredients used and of what was rejected. One of among the many fields of research in archaeology, archaeozoology and medieval archaeozoology, more precisely, has gained a lot of importance along the last few years and last few decades, because now I speak for France, but I feel that's quite the same in most European countries. Archaeological and osteological studies have gained a lot of importance. Now we have a better idea of which meats were used, which animals, the size of the animals, their age, and all of that depending on the social context. So as for the what we can, as for meat, as for animal alimentation, I mean, I don't recover the English word, but as for the conception of meat, we have a pretty good idea along the Middle Ages, between the end of the Roman Empire up to the Renaissance period. And moreover, archaeologists do not only say which species are eaten, but also study traces of tools, how the bones were worked. And so as for meat, the ingredients of food are well known. The bigger problem is bones can be recovered because they are really pretty resistant material. As for organic materials, such as soft parts, the meat itself, not the bones, vegetables, cereals, the situation is quite contrasted, because as you maybe know, the seeds, archaeological seeds, like wheat, like all sorts of grains and cereals, can only be preserved in particular conditions. Seeds when they are in a really wet environment, or when they are burnt or desiccated. And so because of that, we can know some things about vegetal food in medieval Europe, but we don't have many informations about fruits and vegetables for a long period of time. And well, archaeobiology, I don't know the exact English word, because you know words tend to vary between languages and countries, but the archaeological study of plant remains is nowadays a developing field of research in France for the least, but I think Northern European countries have got an advance on us. Well, I think we know a lot of things about the main ingredients of medieval food, but on the contrary, we do not know many things about the ingredients for the recipes. And this is particularly true for early Middle Ages up to the 13th century, because we barely know how things were made and with what they were made, because in medieval archaeology, one cannot hope to find remains of one recipe. What we find is our layers which were accumulated for years or decades. So yes, we find ingredients, but not the ingredients for recipes. That's more of a general thing. I think Aurélie will agree as an archaeologist with me.
Yes, we have a lot of data that can tell us what was the general alimentation, the diet, with many specialized analyses. But to know how it was really used in the recipes, it's another problem. Yeah. Where textual sources and the recipes themselves can help us, but they are known for the first part of the Middle Ages. So we have to do with what we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we can go to the way to do. Now we have, maybe the tools first.
Yeah,
we have
maybe.
Seen what are the ingredients and how we can go to them. I think we don't talk about it, but in the textual sources, there are also few details of names of ingredients, maybe in the contability sources. So we can know what, here again, what are the general alimentation and diets, but not it's not easy how it's used in the real recipes.
Yes.
And for the tools, so it's the vessel and the cooking environments with hearth, structures, this kind of thing you can, Charles and myself too, see when we are excavating in archaeological sites. But they are also evocated in textual sources. So I think we can all talk a lot about it. Charles, if you want to begin.
Yes. Another thing we know as archaeologists is material remains, depending on the material, can preserve more or less well. So one great classic of archaeology is the study of pottery and ceramics. So archaeological studies have brought us lots about the tools used, such as pots, such as cookwares, only when, I think we'll talk later about that, only when it is made out of pottery and ceramics, because, metal tools, I don't know if I can say that, but anyway, metal tools do not preserve as easily and are rarely found on the field. As for cooking environments, such as kitchens, hearth, or simple fires, they are among the most common finds in archaeological sites. I think any kind of settlement sites presents at least one fire. Most of the castles, the likes of which we have excavated with Aurélie, presents hearth made out of ceramics, chimneys. At the end of the Middle Ages, maybe even kitchens, rooms interpreted as kitchens. So yes, the archaeological research have brought us lots about cooking environments and vessels, obviously. But I think this is one of the bases on which experiments are done. And one of the things we cannot know with traditional archaeology is the way to do the gestures and the techniques. And this is where I think the researches of Fabian and Aurélie take place. These techniques of cooking. Can you say more about it, about how you reconstruct these gestures?
This way to do is not easy. Everybody can make a barbecue, a fire, and roasted meat, but with archaeological cook, it is not very easy. My primary source is the recipe book. So naturally, I work with the archaeological research too, but my primary source is the recipe book. I complete with facsimile or culinary furnitures. We have a problem with ingredients, the ecofact, but with furniture, the artifact, it's more easy to have because we can have a good hand worker can reproduce the same pot or the same pan I want, and with the facsimile, they are made from the result of the excavation. So my artifact, I think my artifact is 90% good to make this experience. But the recipe book doesn't give all the information on my top 4. Let me give you an example in the book The Ménagier de Paris, the Ménagier of Paris, a recipe of a chicken pie. Okay, put the chicken in the pot with species. So no more information. Okay, how do I do this? So I need to test how make a part. Perhaps in other recipe book I can find a recipe of part, but it is the same in 14th century in Paris. How do cut my meat? Analyze the contemporary taste of the book and have a choice of spices, binders, acidifiers. It is not easy, but all of this in the end, it will be very subjective, and at least my interpretation is very important, perhaps too important.
For myself, I try to understand how things were done by studying the traces left behind by the cook of the past. It's not easy too, but we can see some traces of these gestures. Is one of the big advantage of mental approach is to try to understand the use of the objects, but all the traces left behind by the gesture and the way to do things. So my main research theme is based on the comparison between the archaeological traces left on ceramics, but also bones, and the really thin vegetal materials, microscopical one, that can bear traces of the different acts that have been done by the cook. So it's really some kind of new things. There is Julien Viaut but for the Neolithic period. But not only for the cook, but all the useware analysis can be done on the ceramic only. But it's very original, and it's a way to try to understand what are the cooking methods that were used. And on this point, I can see if ceramic have been fried, used to fry or to boil, for example, things like this.
And so what about the results of these experiments? What can you say about it? What, yes, what can you say about these results and what they bring us about medieval cuisine and cooking?
I have a presentation at the end of this symposium, but I can make a quick view of these results. I can say that there seems to have to be an evolution in the really end of the Middle Ages with maybe more fried cooking. And what was really interesting is that the pots from Normandy, that is very well known for butter, was more fried. So there are more fats used in the cooking in Normandy for the first results. But it's really just we have to confirm that later with a more consequent corpus of study. And so for the result of the cooking, so what we can see of about the dishes themselves, there are almost not available sources we can see in archaeological sources, but there can be residues analyses that can help to imagine what was inside the vessels, but only it's only really a more or less vague knowledge of ingredients used again. It's not really the recipe itself. Take we can how to say that, we can add a lot of different analyses that can finally go help us to try to understand what was in the pots. That is what of the one of the results I can have. For example, at Orville, we have some ceramics that we have analyzed with 3 methodology. My useware analysis, the starch grain analysis. The starch grain are microscopical vegetal remains, and analysis of the residue, chemical analysis. And mixing all these methods, we can say that in some of the ceramics, they were bread used in complex mix of ingredients, and all of that was in a pot that have been fried. So we can try to imagine there were a dish with bread and other vegetal species, all of that with maybe butter or pork fats, things like this, but it's really limited. Maybe you can complete with what you can have, Charles.
But yes, you know, I don't have many things to say that because as I said earlier, I only get to know the results and know how it was made. As I'm not an archaeologist myself, I told you about the butchery techniques used on bones. Yes, some things can be, we can know some things out of the study of bones, but we, to my, maybe someone will say more about it, but as for what I know, we cannot know exactly the gesture and the way to cut the bones. So I think maybe for that topic, we should inspire us for maybe traditional techniques, or what we call in France ethnoarchaeology. I don't know if the word exists outside France, but anyway, that's both a really interesting and a really problematic field of research. Now, another great questions we have to ask ourselves is, according to all the sources, experimentation, archaeology, textual sources, images, how close can we get to ancient objects and way of doing things? In short, how are we relevant to our field of research?
Just before that, Charles, maybe it's important to have the point of view of Fabian on the results, the dishes, because it is what he he have more sources about the results than we are in archaeology, I think.
Right. Thank you, Aurélie. For just two words. Despite all the problems mentioned, I still get interesting results of experimental archaeology or archaeological cooking. Recipes will be presented this Friday. They highlight the approach and the result. So, and by making these recipes almost incomplete, accessible to the general public, I think we are nevertheless moving towards the dissemination of knowledge. The public have a lot of false idea of this medieval way, and all that we do as archaeologic, experimental archaeologic or cooking, I think yeah, it is a long way, but we yeah, my English is very bad. Yeah, it is a long way, but I think it is a good way.
Okay, so I think we can go further on the question you were asking, Charles.
Yes. Sorry, I was just a bit
rush.
the relevance now of our reflection and of experimentation. First, Fabian, I think you have things to say about what can we do and know with experimental work on the one hand, and what can we do and know with reenactment, in your opinion?
So I will return the question to Aurélie. Can we really talk about reenactment with the art of cooking and about the experimentation? First of all, it's helpful in understanding how the ingredients cook in unfamiliar containers and what result can be expected. So yeah, it's a great helpful, but after that, about the real experimental work, Aurélie, perhaps you can say something.
Yes, I think what you do when you reenact sometimes, even for the general public, can be interesting for me, for example, because my experimental work only point out very specific traces, as I said. I used with pork fat, with nana, but I don't really cook. I don't really follow recipes. It will be interesting for me, for example, to see when you, with your experience and with your know-how, which traces are on your pots, on your I don't know, every tools you are using. And I think it's complementary. It can be complementary. But yes, my experimentation is obviously not at all the same that the medieval cooking was. But I think the gesture is more like what you can do, that because you know how to cook. Yeah, I don't. No. I'm a really bad cook.
I'm not sure, but I know you work. It is not the first time we speaking together. I know you work, and yeah, we have the same experimentation, but we use the same material. Yeah. The same handwork. Véronique Duré, yes. Do you and my pots, and but the results is not the same. I research how can be the recipe. And I'm research too when we are cooking in a pot, in ceramic pot or in the metallic pot, we have a difference, and which the difference can we have? I'm not. I don't work about the ingredient like you. Je te laisse prendre le relais, Aurélie, je me perds.
Mais sinon, dis en français et puis on traduit.
Non, en fait, sur ton travail d'analyse vraiment du phénomène de cuisson dans le pot, avec toutes les traces que l'on peut en retirer, en fait, je n'ai pas exactement cette démarche, parce que moi, ce que je recherche, c'est aussi une analyse du phénomène de cuisson, mais pas forcément les traces qu'il va y avoir sur le pot, mais plus les traces sur l'ingrédient, et surtout, c'est le résultat de la recette m'importe énormément. Voilà.
Yes, the results of the recipe are more important for you than the use of the pots and the tools and the traces left on these tools. But I think your use of these tools using these tools, you are obviously left traces. So your traces might be very interesting to me to see and to compare with my experimental material.
Yeah, I use this tool like a cook.
Yes. Me, myself, I use these pots like a scientific scientist, and I'm not a cook.
But it's the ethnoarchaeology we're talking about earlier.
Yes.
What Fabian makes, obviously.
Yes, yes, and it's also the approach of Julien Viaut, as I said, is working on a Neolithic vessel, and he compare it not with experimentation, but really with an ethnological perspective in Africa, notably.
Yes, and we could imagine doing the same with actual cooks and European cooks, or all kinds of butchers and other specialists of foods. But anyway, I think we are going out of the subject. So where are we now?
I think the discussion were
yes.
very active, and
it got really out of track.
We lost our track, yes. But we can maybe go further with next question, the next points. Can we say that, no, we already did that finally in this discussion. Is our result close to what was actually made by medieval cook? I think we already kind of answered that. Maybe
yes.
you want to say something else, but
not me, but I feel Fabian had something to say about species or spices. Yes, spices.
Spices, yeah. Yeah, about the spices, so it is like the ingredient. It is very difficult to know where was the spices in the Middle Age. But I'm convinced that the spices that arrive on our tables today in the 21st century have more flavor than in the Middle Age. In the Middle Age, perhaps they need 1 year to come from Eastern Asia to us, and today sometimes 3 days with plane, or 1 month with the boat, and we can have these spaces, and the conservation mode is different. Today with plastic material or a metal box, it is not the same at in so I really think the species today have more flavor, and I wonder this abundance of species is perhaps it is just a theory, but to compensate for a certain loss in taste of these species. So if we have an abundance of species to achieve the same test result, we necessarily have a different binding of sauce because a species powder, when is heated, acts as a binder, and the result of the recipes is other.
Yeah, this is really interesting, because I don't think anyone before you, I had never read any reflection about this topic before you said it, but that's really interesting. I think we should discuss that further. Well, do you have anything else to say? Because about spices?
Yeah. Yes, but I don't know we can say in English. So we can go to the next point.
Yes, about the details of the environments and the material used in a reenactment. I asked the question to Fabian again. Does it really matter what you use and the kind of tool you use in the reenactment?
Yeah, absolutely. Some comparative cooking experience show the real difference depending on the material used. The difference between metal and ceramic furniture, for example, but also the difference between two pieces of furniture in the same material nature. For example, two ceramic pots. When you have a marmite a tripod on where we have a poêlon, so it is not the same form of pot, and the result are different. So sometimes I make I test recipe in a different form of pot, and with a lot of thermometer.
Thermometer.
Yeah, like this. and I have this digital thermometer on the meat, on the oil, for example, on the fire, and I show and what's happened, and in two different spots I have a different result of the temperature, and the recipe is other. I don't have the same texture or the same taste with the same recipe in two different pots, and it's amazing.
Yes, it's really interesting. I've seen myself the differences between just the XIIth mediator. As you know, what traces results from boiling or frying or roasting, etc. And obviously there are differences, but it was every time with the same pots because I had to compare similar pieces of vessel. And it's very interesting to know that depending on the vessel you use, you have really different results of temperature and transformation of the raw material. And I think for the ceramologist, it's really a question they are really interested in, because the use of the different types of ceramic is one of the main research theme for most of them, especially in medieval times, because we are. I don't know why, but the medieval ceramists, no, not ceramists, the ceramists specialized on the medieval period have a more anthropological approach than the people that work on other periods. Generally, it's not for all of them, but I think it's very interesting for them to have this kind of information, because it can help to see if some pots are more efficient or can be more used for one thing or on another. Charles, if you want to say.
Well, as you know about pure reenactments, I've not many things to say, but one question we would have liked to ask is about taste and variation and cultural heritage. Do you think we could switch to these questions now?
Yes.
About this, I have actually things to say because, as you know, I work both on archaeological records and textual sources on a particular region, which is Aquitaine in southwestern France. And I noticed something really important between two of the main textual sources we have on this region. As you know, like 5 years ago, or well, some years ago, was discovered in England in the Durham Library a list of recipes which were labeled of Poitou, which was at this time in the 12th century one part of Aquitaine. And this is the oldest, recipe book in a way we have on the medieval West. And the ingredients and the tastes induced by the ingredients of these recipes are really different, extremely different from what we have in the same region in the 14th and 15th century. In the 12th century, there was barely, local herbs, garlic, onions that were used to make sauces and vinegar, and so the tastes seem to have been, according to this unique source, more acidic, and these sources did not use many spices. So a lot of the tastes we label as medieval were not used and were not liked at this time. In the same region, 3 centuries later, the tastes had evolved to what we talk about here, and the tastes of the later Middle Ages with a lot of spices, exotic spices. So I think we have here an example of a real change, a real shift in the taste of this region. And many things can explain it. The rise of international trade of spices, but also I think the cultural influence of Paris and northern France of the recipe books from this region, because between the 12th and the 15th century, Aquitaine was invaded and bound to the Kingdom of France, which at this time in many areas like language, like architecture, was influenced by northern France. So yes, that's really interesting, and I think interesting and fascinating thing to see the shifts of taste along the Middle Ages. And I think we should keep in mind that what we talk about here, about the spices, about the recipes, it's mainly the last centuries of the Middle Ages, from the end of the 13th to the beginning of the 16th century. If you agree with me, I mean.
Yes, of course, yeah. Wait, yeah. If we are based on textual sources, we can only see the last times of the medieval period, and moreover, it's only the upper echelon of the society, very upper, that are concerned. The everyday cooking can't easily be seen with these recipe books. But in literature, you have some details sometimes here and there about the social difference, notably between one or another cooking.
Yes.
or
And,
things that people are eating.
yes, and it's probable that many of the recipes written in recipe books are adapted from popular cooking and cuisine, as is the case in many cultures in the world.
Mm.
So yes, I think I feel we would have many things to say about
Yes.
about it. But shall we make our way to our next point?
Yes, yes, I think we
May
have
I,
to to go
okay.
further now.
So I shall ask the question to Fabian especially. We have seen how we can reconstruct ancient foodways from what we can see from the past, but it also works on the other side, our side. How does reenactment and experimentation help us in the interpretation of ancient materials?
Hello.
Has,
Yes.
Fabian, your experience helped
Yeah.
you to understand some secrets hidden in the recipes?
It's daring to speak of secrets. Keep in mind that the cookbook in the Middle Age is not necessarily intended for the cook.
Mm.
Therefore, not all the information that we usually expect will be present, such as dosage, cooking time, material sometimes, etc. But experience makes it possible to better understand recipes or to more easily apprehend the technique. I am thinking, for example, of blending with egg yolk, which is quite difficult and requires some experience. So, on the, enfin, some recipe remain just as obscure too. So, for example, I'm thinking of the XIIth in Pastillo from the Liber de Coquina, which we will present with Bruno in the recipe session Friday. It's sometimes the recipe give information we don't understand, and when we try to do that is mentioned in the recipe. What? What's happened? Why do like this? Because it can be more easy or more simple in other method. So yeah, we have the two yeah, the to do is helpful to understand sometimes the recipes or the utensil too. We have some evidence about utensil, but not usually. And when we are cooking, when we would try to do with the utensil, so we can sometimes better understand what was the art of the cook in the Middle Age.
And for you, Charles, what do you think could or has already helped you to understand the logical material or structures in the reenactments or experimentation?
Well, as we said earlier, there are not many medievalists who invest themselves in experimentation. So just as for now, experimentation has not helped me or other archaeologists much, but what could be of great help is what you do is experimental based referential of cooking traces and food remains on potteries and hearths. That could be of great help to interpret archaeological material layers or structures, because nowadays, potteries are most of the time used only to date layers and structures, you know, as they are only used as you know, time period givers, if I could say so. But our understanding of cooking is up to the 13th century, as we said, is almost entirely dependent on archaeological data, and more precisely on potteries and ceramics. So I think we should make the most of it by studying more precisely and more thoroughly traces, and what traces tell us of the cooking methods, of the fires, of the use of water, the use of fats, and so we need referentials based on experimentation to to sum up.
Yes.
We need exactly what you do.
But I'm.
We need you.
Really. I think, and that's why I really enjoy with the association I talked in my introduction and the presentation, because I really think experimentation can be really helpful for every period of time we are studying in archaeology, not only the oldest one.
Yes.
Yes, and about the importance of it. For me, my research is based on a continuous back and forth between the archaeological and experimental material. So it starts with the sources that help me to see and to know what I will engage in my experimentation. And then I experimented, and finally the results of the experimentation helped me to understand how the archaeological material was used. So it goes together.
Yes, and
every time a step forward.
And earlier we were talking about different cultural areas and regions, and you focus, if I'm right, on the Parisian region and northern France. Am
Yes.
I right? What could be really interesting it would be to compare techniques used in different regions and countries at the same time periods to know if there was some differences used between, I don't know, Normandy and Brittany, or Aquitaine
Yes.
and northern France. And yes, that would be
Yes.
a great thematic of research.
It's what I hope to do, but I had to start somewhere. So
Yes,
I started where I work. I work on the obvious sites since lots of time, and it is my base, my first point to go further.
yeah, but I'm talking about the future.
Yes, but not only for the same period, but for other periods too. It's important.
Well, yes.
Things are evolving, but I think it's very late. We might go to the conclusion.
Yes, absolutely.
Charles, if you want.
So I begin the conclusion on my point of view. I think interpreting raw archaeological data in terms of actual use, for example, interpreting potteries in terms of use, is one of the main difficulties when it comes to the study of archaeological structures and material cultures. I think controlled experimentation seem to be, in my opinion, one of the more promising ways to improve our understanding of material evidence by going beyond simple shape typologies, which are necessary but not sufficient, and use the use of material cultures simply to date things. So I think experimentation is really important to the interpretation of archaeological data. And that's my conclusion. And I think, Fabian, you have many things to say in conclusion.
Yeah, but I'm very agree with you. Yeah, for me, my job, my work, I can't do that I do. I can cook only the archaeological data. I need this archaeological data to have a good facsimile of pot or pan or utensil to do my experience, and I really think it's impossible to see reenactment of culinary recipes as a real reconstruction of the past. A part of my work is more the interpretation or in the evocation of even the realization of recipes inspired by the Middle Age. I'm cooking like the Middle Age. I try to do something, so something good, but yeah, it's really.
But with the taste of today.
Yeah, with the taste of today. Yeah.
Well, it's my turn. I think we have said we know what we are doing. Every of the three of us, but it's important. I think we can talk about a lot of things together because our approaches are really complementary, and it's a very rich discussion that we can have and we will have, I'm sure, in the future.
Yes.
So thank you to all of you. And I have to say that reminds that the recorded session will be available the day after the CoReMA, so tomorrow, on the CoReMA YouTube channel. Maybe we can now go to the questions. If I've seen there are a lot of questions, or some at least.
Yes. So I have a lot of questions, but the first one is easy, I think. It's about the use of tools and container. And the question is, it all the container are specific or multi-use?
I think we all have a lot of things of say about it. I can say what I see with the traces on the pots, the cooking pots. It is difficult to see if pots have been used for several times or not, but sometimes we can see on some pots different fill line. So it means that the pots have been used 3, 2, we don't know exactly, but the archaeological evidence can tell us that some of the pots have been used more than just one time. But there are some that seems to really have been used only one time. And the other question is it used for every time the same recipe or the same kind of preparation or not? And for that, the examples of pots that have been used for different uses, for boiling and then frying, or there are layers on the inside of the pots that show that he have been used for many things. And I can go further even because some pichets that are drinking vessel can be reused as cooking pots. So they are even several lives in a vessel life.
Yeah, I think it's depending to the social background too. When we read a book like Du fait de cuisine from Master Chicard, in a lot of recipes, Maître Chicard say you need to take a new pot. So I think perhaps in the aristocracy, they have more facility to have a new pot and a new utensil when they need. Perhaps not for the metallic furniture, but for ceramic furniture, they can have a new pot for each cook. But perhaps in other people, not aristocracy, they have like say Aurélie, a different use, and the furniture has a life, and I can use plusieurs fois.
Several times.
Several times. Thank you.
I have also things to say about this in terms of we are all complementary in terms of time period, I think, because on the extent of the Middle Ages, we see everywhere in Western Europe a great trend, which is the diversification of shapes of potteries and ceramics from the High Middle Ages, where there are barely only pots, cooking pots, rounded potteries, and from the 12th century and on to the 16th century, there is a great diversification of ceramics and pottery shapes. We go from pots which were maybe used for a great variety of uses to potteries, cooking potteries, used maybe only for one type of use. We've got frying pans made out of ceramic. We've got what we call in French lèche frites, which are which serve to collect the fat when something is roasted, and so on. So maybe only experimentation could precise this, but maybe I think from the 13th century, many things were going to to have one single use, more than in the early Middle Ages, where some shapes were having lots of different uses in the kitchen. So I think it depends on the time period too.
When I cook, sometimes I break a pot because he have a difference of temperature. He is hot, and I take out the fire, and when I deposit it on the floor is cold, and clacks, the pot break with my meat inside. And sometimes the pot have a default too. The less experience we have, we test a big pot, and the hand worker make with a colombin. La technique au colombin.
I don't know how to say it in English.
It's a small, how to say, snakes of yes, of dirt, of argile, of pasts, of
Clay.
argillaceous pasts that are put. It's really hard to explain.
Yeah, it's hard.
We should show an image because I don't think we are really clear either.
Yeah, but well, I have this pot, and the worker, it was the first time he make this type of pot, and he had a default, and when we cook a big chicken with wine and spices, and after one fast 1 hour, the pot break. En fait, c'est le cul du pot qui a cassé.
The bottom of the pot.
Voilà, the bottom of the pot break, and all of the wine and the water get on fire, and so it was good. My chicken was perfect, but I have no sauce more.
But this kind of experience is very interesting for us because we find a lot of pots that are just break on the base or break in a way or another. So I think this could really enlighten ceramic, the study of ceramics and the way they break.
So maybe a second question about the material and the tools. We have a question about the recipe in German, because in Vietnam there are some ustensiles in laiton, brass in English. Did you have the same in French? And is it a material very specific for cooking?
Do you want the archaeologist point of view or the historian point of view? Because it's not
both
the same.
Of them.
As we said, in the remains of the tools for us are mainly in ceramics, because we don't find a lot of metal tools, but sometimes in some specific sites where there are ideal conservation condition, we can find wood or metallic tools. But the problem of the metal is that it's reused and it's conserved a lot. The ceramics are cheaper, then it's mostly when one break, you take another and there is no problem. But when you have a metallic vessel, we have traces of that, of remanagement or reparation of this kind of vessel. So we archaeologists are digging in trashes, and we find in this type of context what peoples are leaving behind them. So we don't find a lot of metallic vessels, but in the textual sources, especially in inventory, and I'm not the most. I will talk about that, but there are a lot of mentions of these types of tools.
Yes. Was about inventories. Yes, in many castle inventories and urban houses inventories, you have it's quite the opposite to the archaeological record, because ceramics and potteries are not mentioned at all in inventories because they are not worth it, because they are replaced each time they break, and they break quite often. But inventories give us a good image of what cookware really looked like, and there was a lot of metal, mainly copper and brass, brass frying pans, for example, and grills, you know, for grilling, and oh, I've gone to I don't know the English word for it, but you know, in French we say broche. Does anyone know how we say it? You know, for roasting meats on the fire, and all of this was made out of irons, copper and brass, yes, mainly. I think they were reused and transmitted to the next generation or sold, though that explains a lot about the lack of metallic finds in archaeological records. But inventories do not say much about how they were used, and I think recipe books contain, on the contrary, some precisions about the use of, for example, frying pans. For fish, it seems, if I remember well.
For for the question of material, there is the diffusion of temperature too. This temperature, depending on the recipe, one will favor metal or ceramic, for example, and all metal have not the same property. Sometimes the taste given to food can be some material can influence the taste of the recipe, and sometimes it's the whim of the author too. One author want copper, for example, and so you say from the you say, Chantran and Aurélie, from the inventories or the possibly excavation reports. For the metal, it's more difficult. The image, the iconography too can give some idea about this furniture, but yeah, I think the temperature is a good possibility. Think about the temperature of the furniture.
But in mainly recipes, they don't say anything about the kind of pots. I remember in Chicard, Le Ménagier, and other like this. It's they only say take a pot, but they don't say if it's metallic pots, iron pots, copper pots, or ceramic pots.
Okay. You think when the Ménagier or Chicard say take a pot, you think it can be different material of pot?
I don't know. If you say it really have a great impact on what is cooked, I think I guess it is important, but maybe it's left to the appreciation of because it's just like when they say put I don't know salt as you want, things like this.
But it's interesting because for me a pot was a ceramic pot, and when we have another time like a chaudière, for example, it was perhaps metallic for furniture. So okay, interesting.
Thank you so much for this answer. I have a lot of other questions if you want. The first one is about the reenactment. Cornelius Berto asked if the did you see a fundamental or structural epistemological difference between experimental archaeology and traditional scholarship? It's a question about the theory of reenactment.
Yes, good question. I think experimentation is really linked to the creation and the history of the constitution of the archaeology, because, as we said, it's very linked to the prehistorical archaeology and ancient period archaeology. And French archaeology is very impacted by the research made by André Leroy-Gourhan, notably, that really influenced a lot the archaeological approach. So the academical French way to do archaeology, especially in some university more than on others, but is very linked to the technical approach. Because it's linked to the technical approach, it's linked to experimentation, or it's it can be really something we learn as students in some university, not all of them. But the difference for the historical periods, it's that it is a really different approach that is more influenced by the history of arts, and it's more linked to the humanities than to the social or science. I don't know how to say, not real science, because archaeology is a real science, but science more about chemicals or things like this. Yes. So I would, my answer will be, it really depends on the university and on the academical approach. Really, there are many formations to be archaeologists, and none of them are the same. But in some universities, it is the case. In mine, Paris 1, Panthéon-Sorbonne, where I don't make my license or my first degrees, but where I am now, and I see they are really really impacted by this technical and anthropological approach of André Leroy-Gourhan and Claude Lévi-Strauss, all of them. Maybe can say other things. I don't know if I really answer the question.
Maybe I can add something. Maybe even if I'm not an experimentator myself, maybe the epistemological and scientific frame is quite different between your colleagues who work with prehistorical and Bronze Age, Iron Age experimentation, and people working on historical periods, because we medievalists have not only the material records, and we are not only interpreting material records, but we've got large selection of sources, including images and texts, who can give hints on how to reconstruct things. And I think it may be quite a big difference between a pure anthropological approach, which can be the case for prehistoric times, and historical archaeology. I mean, but maybe, I don't know maybe if you think the same as me, but I think that's a big difference, including experimental approaches, even if the anthropological lectures of material culture by André Leroy-Gourhan, for example, are an important reference to all of experimentators. But maybe I am mistaken.
Yeah. For me,
yes, go on.
Okay, for me, the experimental archaeology is really a scientific approach with defined protocol, an analysis of result, but how to make archaeology with something as impalpable and evanescent as the taste. So research on cooking recipes involves a part of subjectivity, and it is not the same approach. But all of this, it's very helpful to define and to understand how was the medieval. The medieval cooking, the medieval cook art. And for me, one is not better as another, but all together can help to know and to understand.
Yes, I'll add something because I have read the question, and I understand. I think the real way it was. I think it's about reenactment, and as we said on the first part, reenactment as it is done in medieval festivals in Europe or in I don't know where people are costumed or things like this. I know some of them really have an experimental approach, but it's not experimentation. Experimentation is a really scientific way to do with a question to answer, a scientific question to answer. Reenact can be really good for explain things to people or to just refill self
just for the fun too. Just for the fun too,
yes. I did that and I know you too, Fabian, just for the fun, just to be like in the Middle Ages. But we know as scientists that it's not really like the Middle Ages. It's just a way to imagine and to have fun. But I think it's really in some case a way to. I know some medieval company really try, not with a scientific approach, but with curiosity only, to do things because they just ask the same. But how do they do with that? And they do sometimes really good researches on the subjects they're interested in. But I understand there can be a gap between scientific approach and some kind of I don't know, fear to look like just people that have fun when you do experimentation. But when you really have a scientific démarche, the question is not. It doesn't have to be.
Yes, it is scientific, most in the way of natural sciences. I mean, you can repeat the same experiments in the same conditions to verify what your experience told you in the first place. A bit like experiments in, I don't know, biology, for example, or of chemistry.
Yes, exactly.
We have a small time now. It's time to speak about the spicy. I have a lot of questions about spicy. The first one I want to share with you is about the anthropology approach. Chevalier Cécile asked if when Fabian speak about the taste of the spicy, is it only historical or there are also anthropological questions? For example, analysis on historical taste and adaptation of historical dishes for Noé Papier. So Is it the same taste if we are from now and from the past? And she compared that with the spicy and not spicy when you are from Mexico or India. It's not spicy, but for French people, it's very spicy. Is it the same for the medieval time? And is it a question about not historical, but anthropology? Did you have an answer with anthropology tips?
Yeah. I have very difficulty to answer in English, but Anselme Bria-Savarin say from physiologie du goût. This taste, yeah, it's you say in the question we have not the same taste in France, in Mexico, and yeah, and this taste is a cultural taste. It is a society taste. When I was younger, I make an experience. I travel a lot around the world, and I eat a Big Mac. It is not medieval, but I eat a Big Mac in every land I go, and in Denmark or in France or in North Africa. You go in Fez, in Morocco, and you have a Big Mac. You have a McDonald's in the center, the town center of Fez, and the Big Mac is different, really. So today, in every land we go, you have another taste culture, and in the Middle Age, it is the same. When you take a Spanish recipe book like Liber de Coquina, or an English book like Form of Curie, or a French book, we don't have the same research of taste. Sometimes we need sugar, sometimes we need more species, not the same. Sometimes we research, we are cooking with vinegar. In a lot in north of France and Germany. So we have a lot of difference, and this difference, we have an evolution a century after century. And today, we are not the same research as in the Middle Age. And I think a big work, perhaps another program research, CoReMA 2, about the taste of but big work can be do, and the anthropology is necessary to answer at this question. Not just history or archaeology, but anthropology. Yes, it's not is necessary.
Thank you, Fabian, for this answer. I have a second question about spicy. The people ask if the more important is the taste of the socialization about the behind the spicy. So, la personne demande si ce qui est le plus important, c'est le goût de l'épice ou la classification sociale qui se cache derrière.
Oui. I understand. Le goût, comment on dit le goût déjà, the taste?
Taste.
Oui. The taste of the species is important. we have a species in the recipe because it is good. The taste is good, but not all. They are oh, j'ai les mots en allemand qui me viennent. They have a high cost, so it is a social evidence to have species in recipe. When somebody is rich in the Middle Age, he look which l'habit fait le moine au Moyen Âge. In the banquet, a lot of species, everybody can see this man is rich, but not all. We have the medical, all of these species have medical properties, and we think in the Middle Age that this species came from paradise. These species are paradise fruits. So when we eat species, we are going near God we eat species for many reasons, but the taste for me is the first reasons. The taste and the cost are the first reasons.
I think the two are linked because they are tastes for peoples and tastes for poor peoples. And I was talking about examples in the literature. I really like in the Roman du Duc d'Anjou, where the heroine, the main character, is traveling between different kinds of houses, and it's the occasion to see how look like poor dishes, or poor dish, or poor meal, and a middle class one and a rich one. All of these are outlined because the book is outlining the differences between social status, and I think there are poor tastes and rich tastes, and rich tastes comes with spices, I guess. Spices, sorry.
Thank you so much for this last answer. So for me, it's the last question. It's perfect.
All right.
Okay.
So I guess we it's the end.
Yes, thank you to everyone, and thank you for your questions too. That were really interesting. As you have seen, we have a lot of things to say about it, and we lost a lot of things because I guess in French we could have answered more deeply than that, and we are sorry for our poor English, but I hope it was good even with this problem.
Okay, thank you everybody, and see you soon for Friday the recipes, and next week Aurélie, Charles, and me, and Clarissa too.
Yes, Clarissa.
So we have our communication next week. So thank you and see you.
And thanks everyone for organization and translation. And thank you everyone for your participations. And sorry again for our poor English, because I think we said what we could, but said, well, yeah, I think we should have, we could have said a lot more in French, but anyway, we have a lot more to discuss together because before going to definitive results, I think.
So
Yes.
thank you to everyone, and see you tonight for the panel my just chose with Rémi Pichon and Raphaël Hirtsko.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.